In August of 2005, much of the Gulf Coast, that's the part of the North American continent that borders the Gulf of Mexico, was ravaged by Hurricane Katrina. Now, out of respect to anyone who was affected by that tragedy, I will not be showing any footage of it, also because it would probably get blocked by YouTube. So instead, I am going to be showing pictures of me playing as the Saints in the game of Madden.
In New Orleans, specialized levees designed to prevent flooding failed, which melded with the high winds to overwhelm the city in both water and debris. This, coupled with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, dragging its feet in the delivery of aid, resulted in thousands of people being stranded for days on end. People were literally being forced to live on the roofs of their house, constantly being exposed to the elements.
Suffice to say, it was a disaster in every sense of the word. So why exactly am I talking about it? Well, today's story, Nola, takes place in a post-Katrina New Orleans. And, well, it's just kind of the only little bit of background information I can find. Other than, well, the fact that the character Nola is obviously named after the initials for New Orleans, Louisiana. Either that or the people behind this comic are really big fans of Spike Lee, Scarlett Johansson, or possibly Emmy Rossum.
Yeah, this happens sometimes, particularly with indie comics from publishers like Boom Studios, who tend to look for failed movie pitches, which they can then publish and hopefully then turn into successful movie pitches.
Now, I'm not exactly saying that this is the case with Nola, that it's a failed movie pitch, but to be honest, it reads like a failed movie pitch. Anyway, from 2009, here's Nola from Boom Studios.
Two women, one wrapped almost entirely in bandages, approach the bridge leading into New Orleans. When halted by the police, the bandaged woman stubbornly tries to march by, resulting in a beatdown. This is Nola Thomas and her childhood friend Cinda Branford. Just 3 weeks prior, they were at the local country club having lunch with Nola's mother and Cinda's father, the local district attorney. The meal was even covered by local car dealer and longtime family friend Mr. Rondell. As Nola and her mother are picked up by their favorite cabbie, Mr. Jeffries, the young lady is obviously questioned about her love life. Nola plays coy, but dresses up for a hot date later, using the cover of going out for a few drinks with Cinda. And there's a good reason for Nola keeping things on the QT, because she's involved with Chavis Turner, who's married to Mr. Rondell's daughter. The two have been having an affair for quite some time. Returning to the present, the two officers appear to recognize Nola, calling her the mummy lady as they begin fighting her. This results in Nola getting her hand on one of the officers' gun and shooting both of them. This is the first of two on Nola's revenge list.
So what exactly happened here? Why is Nola all bandaged up? Well, she apparently thought that it was time for her and Chavis to make the relationship a tiny bit more official.
However, Chavis had other plans because he likes money. The two argued in the car, which caused it to veer off the highway and into a small ravine. Chavis was thrown from the vehicle while Nola was pinned inside. Knowing he needed to cover his tracks, Chavis elected to burn the car with Nola still inside. Nola was just barely able to get free of the vehicle before it exploded. This left Nola with burns on 40% of her body, and she was put into a medically induced coma, though she did overhear her doctor, Patrick Chase, ordering that she be left behind when Katrina was about to hit, prioritizing patients who were healthy enough to be evacuated. She woke up some time later to find the hospital all but abandoned, save for two male patients who had to leave to fight zombies/virus-infected rage monsters.
Look, I gotta do something to try to lighten this thing up from time to time.
Back in the present, Nola tells Cinda to go home as the DA's daughter can't be seen at a cop killing before getting on a police horse and riding into town. Flashing back to her leaving the hospital, Nola returned home to find Jeffries waiting alongside her mother's body. The stress of Nola's accident plus Katrina was too much and her heart just gave out. Jeffrey told Nola to get in touch with the Branfords as soon as possible. From there, Nola tried to leave via the bridge, where the two cops whom she would later kill assaulted her and threw her in jail for 24 hours. Returning to the present, Nola returned home to find Jeffries explaining that he buried her mother's body in the backyard.
You know, considering that New Orleans is famously below sea level, I hope that grave was cement-lined.
Even though Jeffries warns her that this is a hollow pursuit, Nola decides that she's officially out for revenge against those who wronged her, starting with Dr. Chase. She tracks down his address at the hospital and storms into his house. She pieced together that someone got to him to make sure that she didn't survive a car accident. She then shoots him for his trouble. As he lays dying, Chase explains that this actually goes all the way back to Nola's father.
Nola's father was a real estate lawyer from New York City who was in town to broker a deal over some land. It was thought that he left the family shortly after the deal fell through. However, it seems now that has been proven to be untrue.
Chase explains that Peter Alden, the man Nola's father represented, was killed negotiating a deal for several large plots of land outside of town. Chase was paid to cover up the death and make it look like an accident. Nola's father was insistent on the case being investigated, only to suddenly disappear a few days later. It's then that the doctor dies due to blood loss. This makes Nola flash back to being led out by the cops and making her way to the Branford's place, where Cinda suggested telling everything to a family friend of the police force, Sergeant Thibodeau. However, Thibodeau says that Chavis reported that a woman stole his car and that Nola was pronounced dead. It's then that Nola got the full look at the damage done to her body and started to set out for revenge. Returning to the present, Nola heads back to her home and fills Jeffrey in on everything that happened, including the next stop in her plan, which starts the next morning, where she heads over to the Mercedes dealership, where Chavis Turner works. Nola holds up a security guard in order to try to gain access to the office records, and when he tries to disarm her, he winds up getting shot. She then turns up a document on the Alden property. It turns out the plots were being purchased by Mr. Rondell to put up more dealerships.
Dude, there is no way there are that many wealthy people in New Orleans to necessitate 5 or 6 Mercedes dealerships.
While this plays out, Mr. Jeffries receives a visit from Sergeant Thibodeau. Apparently he knew Nola's mother, which sets Jeffries off, leading the cabbie to lie about Nola's whereabouts. However, Thibodeau remains unconvinced as he leaves. Nola gets into contact with Mr. Branford about the Alden case, and he reveals everything. Nola's father was acting against the wishes of the Alden family, who just wanted to sell to Rondell. However, with Nola's father constantly pressing for the investigation, he was just getting in the way of things, so Rondell arranged for a young cop, aka Sergeant Thibodeau, to kill Nola's father, and then Mr. Rondell paid off Branford to cover everything up. Added to that, Mr. Rondell would pay years upon years of hush money to Nola's mother for this case as well. Mr. Branford tries to justify his actions by pointing out that both Nola and Cinda were very young at the time, and he feared for the safety of both children. But Nola is not really having any of it and gets up to go take care of Chavis Turner, leaving Mr. Branford to wallow in his shame. Nola stows away in the back of Turner's car and demands to know where his father-in-law is. Mr. Rondell is at the main offices for his dealerships, so Chavis is ordered to drive there, only to attempt an escape, which results in him getting shot and then finished off when Nola stabs him in the throat with a Rondell Mercedes pin. From there, it's on to Mr. Rondell, who's holding a meeting when Nola barges in. He begs for mercy, but Nola is out of fucks to give at this point and just shoots him. However, none of this has gone unnoticed, as Thibodeau overhears of Nola's escapades on the police scanner and returns to the Thomas home to take Jeffries hostage.
And yes, I am fully aware that there is an error in the newspaper headline which is talking about the Saints' victory in Super Bowl 44, which happened 4 years after Katrina.
Thibodeau confronts Nola when she returns, and he knows what he did was wrong, and he's been trying to make good ever since. He's willing to make an offer to let Nola and Jeffries go, since Nola is considered dead anyway, as long as they never return to New Orleans. However, Nola and Jeffries work together to kill Thibodeau. Afterwards, the two dispose of Thibodeau's body in a local swamp, with Jeffries deciding to stay because he loves New Orleans too much. But Nola is still considered dead, so no one really misses her or comes sniffing around. So maybe that's best the past should just stay dead and New Orleans be allowed to come back on its own terms.
And that concludes our look at Nola. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I really did like the artwork in this story. I think it does a really good job at capturing post-Katrina New Orleans and the damage that was wrought to it. The floodwaters, the receding damage, the water, the debris that's everywhere, the people sitting on the roofs of their houses, everything. It just has that real kind of dirty, grimy feel that, just accentuated how bad that storm really truly was. And for the most part, I like the characterization in this story. I think, this is kind of one of those no really good people in this. Like, the only character I would say would truly fall into the category of good was maybe Mr. Jeffries. Like, even Nola herself, I'm not trying to say she got what she deserved by any stretch of the imagination. No, but she was openly engaging in an affair with a married man. She knew he was married. She knew, he was really only in it for the money. And yet you still pursued him romantically. You're not exactly to blameless here. You could have found, she's depicted as being relatively attractive. She probably could have found a more suitable guy, and I'm not trying to shame too much here, but still, you knew what you were getting into, and why were you shocked when he didn't want to be in an open relationship with you? He wanted to keep it secret. And, well, that kind of leads to the problem I have with this book is, I've said this before, I don't like the bouncing narrative where we start at one place, then we need to jump back into the past, then we jump back to the present, then we jump back to the past. And it really doesn't work in a 4-issue comic. Like, again, I said this reads like a failed movie pitch, and, you know, admittedly, the jumping back narrative works a little bit better in movies, and I would even say better in television shows than it does in a comic book. And yeah, that's really true here in this case. And you know, if this had been a 5-issue comic and you just shifted it around so it was just a straightforward story, I think it would be really good. But just leads to but losing an issue, making it 4 issues, just makes everything feel kind of rushed. Because it's like she's out. Yeah, the first issue you outline that she's going to be out for revenge on Turner and, you know, whoever, you know, he is involved with. But then suddenly it becomes about avenging her father. And it's like, you know, maybe you save that for, if you have this be 5 issues and you tell this in a chronological order, you put that father revelation in the 3rd issue, and then it does turn the story on its head. Now it just feels like, well, now you're trying to either pad this out or, you know, this just feels like a rush job because it shouldn't be in this story at this point. We should be going after, you know, the guy who wronged her. And, you know, not trying to unwrap a deeper mystery. So yeah, it just leads to this really uneven pacing that makes the story lose a lot of its impact, unfortunately. That's why I'm going to have to give Nola a C. It's not particularly good, but it's also not particularly bad. It's very average. If you read it, you'll probably get a good story out of it, maybe, but like I said, I was just kind of disappointed by it. Alright, so normally this is where I go into the randomizer for the random trade review, but you know, it's our 200th episode next time, so I gotta try to do something special, don't I? Okay, I need to explain why this is going to be taking so long here. I'm not just covering the Infinity Gauntlet. I am covering the Return of Thanos, Thanos Quest, the Return of Adam Warlock, the Infinity Gauntlet miniseries itself, plus all the tie-ins, which include 10 more issues of the Silver Surfer, 4 more issues of Doctor Strange, 2 more issues of the Incredible Hulk, 1 issue each of the Mutant Misadventures of Cloak and Dagger, Quasar, and Sleepwalker. And then we're going to be covering the Infinity Gauntlet Aftermath, which includes 1 more issue of Doctor Strange, another 5 issues of the Silver Surfer, plus material from an annual, and the first 6 issues of the Infinity Watch series. All in all, this totals about 51 comics. So, yes, I've got a lot of work to do. However, there will probably be a little supplemental video in between with the random trade memories covering the last 100 episodes like I did the last time. So, see you all then.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.